Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's the Pest and Lawn Ginja. Today, we're going to go over my quick tips for Bermuda lawns. If you're anything like me, you are a sucker for a good view. You probably missed all the deficiencies in the lawn. So we're going to take a little bit of a rewind as I walk out the door. But you'll notice several bald areas. The grass has an overall haze to it, and we have a lot of what we call runners in the lawn. Now, one of the very first things that you're going to want to do is to identify the grass type that you're dealing with. There's a few giveaways that tells me that this is a Bermuda lawn. The first thing, these runners are kind of a dead giveaway that we're dealing with a warm season grass. The overall leaf color, shape, and size also tells me that this is a Bermuda lawn. The dead giveaway for any type of grass, if you're wondering, is the seed head. Now, this time of the year and the location that I'm at, I'm not going to find that, but I am fairly confident that this is a Bermuda lawn. Now, whether or not you have a warm season grass or a cool season grass, you can still use my 5-step diagnostic approach, where we examine color, pattern, water saturation, a debris test, and a pull test to figure out what the lawn is telling us it needs or the problems that it's exhibiting. Now, when it comes to isolating patterns, which is usually what my eye sees first, and then color, we're looking at some random issues where it's bald and an overall haze problem. So number one, we know that we're going to have to diagnose some of these areas individually, and we have an overall general issue going on. We know in these random areas where we have these dead spots, the pattern on the outside is a little bit jagged. It's not smooth. Now, we know they're almost like blotches that have just been like thrown out there like little kids throwing a tantrum, right? And so there's nothing sensical about them. Commonly when I'm finding patterns like this, it's going to come down to a fungal issue or an insect problem. If it was water, we would see almost like a uniform U shape. It would be very clean. You can walk the pattern, no problems. Now, the overall color of the lawn is kind of a haze, and that's due to a couple of things. Number one, they just did a fresh mow. You can tell by the way that it was cut. It was brought down a little bit too aggressively, so they lost a little bit of color, but Bermuda, like a redhead stepchild, likes to be beat up just a hair, and it comes back even better. So that's not a big deal. But the biggest problem that we face is the overall lawn. No matter where I pull from, it's got fungal tissue in it. So part of what we need to do is to decipher whether we have a bug problem or if we have a fungal problem. And what we want to do as part of the color pattern is take a really close look at the leaf tissue. Now, you'll start to see very quickly that the grass blades are discolored. Now, commonly when we have these dots in here and we have the yellow intertwined with the green, it does indeed mean that we're dealing with a fungus. This is a very important tell sign. Now, keep in mind though, if this were a drought stress issue, the tissue would commonly be brown and not multicolored. Now, I'd say we have a pretty solid working theory, but again, we need to prove it. So next step is testing water saturation levels. Where there's water, there can be fungus, but if this is actually drought stress, then it's not going to be a fungal issue. So let's check it out. Truth be told, you don't have to have a lot of fancy equipment to check water saturation depths. I'm going to show you today how I use a butter knife to check my water levels. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go out to the greenest part of the lawn, and we're actually going to check the depths there. I know that those areas will have the greatest amount of water because where there's green lawn, there is water. Your tissue of grass is going to be comprised of about 70% water, so that's an easy test to do. Then we're going to compare it with some of these other areas, and that will give us a good baseline test to draw from. Now, it's important to understand that when you're doing this, you don't want to try to just force the knife to go wherever you want it to go. You just want to use a nice medium push and the same pressure throughout the lawn. See here, we've got about 4 inches of water saturation, which for a Bermuda lawn is totally fine. The grass is happy. I wouldn't expect anything else. Now, judging from the soil that's coming off onto the knife, we're dealing with a lot of red clay. Now, clay has a tendency to hold a lot of water. So don't be too concerned if your watering depths are a little bit shallow because of rocks. That just means you're going to have to modify the way that you're watering. Instead of watering 3 days a week, you may have to water 4 to 5 days a week if you don't have a lot of topsoil to hit shallower depths. Some ginjas use samurais. This ginja's using a butter knife, but what it told us is these areas are not drought stressed. There's plenty of water. Now, we can take that information and we now know for a certainty, especially in these areas by the trees, these areas on the ground, that we're actually dealing with a fungus. Our pattern has shown us that, our color has shown us that, and now that we know that this isn't lack of water, which is kind of the final step, it makes it an easy issue. But even right now, it just started randomly raining, and every one of these issues, even down here, is getting wet. Now when it comes down to the pull test, we are checking for fungal matter and we're also checking for active insect activity. If you've had a fungus that's been there for a while, when you do the pull test, the grass is going to come out and it's going to be somewhat slimy, or you're going to find powdery mildew all over it. Now, if you are getting grass that pulls up, you want to take extra time and check for insects that are burrowing through the lawn. You don't want to miss that step. You want to check several areas in the lawn. Now, when it comes down to the debris test, we're really not finding much debris at all in the areas that are completely green. Now, in the areas that are bald, we are finding debris because it's matted material. Well, there we have it, guys. Let's put it all together. Color and pattern have told us that we have an overall underlying issue of fungus. The water saturation test also confirms that drought stress is not an issue. The pull test has told us that we don't have any insects that have been traveling through the lawn. We know that's not a concern, but the primary concern is we know that when we go through here in the areas with the suspected large patch, we know that that material has been matted down. Now, in this instance, repair-wise, what I would like to see done if I were on the maintenance crew is take some dirt and put it over the top. First of all, I would scuff it with a rake. Just, you can do that with your hands too, and you can really see that this material just starts to come out. And it's all just dead material. There's nothing of value to this, so scraping the top is a good thing. Plus, the fungal layer actually lies within the debris, so removing all of this is a really good thing. Now, when we place the dirt on top, we're going to be encouraging the stolons of the Bermuda to push forward through the dead areas, and that is ultimately what's going to repair the area. And we want to limit the amount of nitrogen that we're putting down. That means that if you're commonly used to doing like the spray and pray and just shoving things down, we need to do a little bit of math. Limit your nitrogen uptake to 1/4 pound to 1/2 pound of nitrogen, which mathematically not hard to do. You take the first number on the bag, you divide 100 by that number. That will tell you how many pounds of product per 1,000 square feet to get to 1 pound of nitrogen. Then divide that by 2 if you're only going to be doing monthly or every 4 to 6 week applications. If you're doing every other week, you're going to want to divide it by 4 and make sure that you focus on 1/4 pound of nitrogen only every 2 to 4 weeks. That's going to help out dramatically. The other thing is clean out the spots. Take a rake, get the decomposed or the non-decomposed matter out, replace it with dirt. We're going to keep this very simple. Number 3, focus on the regular fungicide apps. As the temperature and humidity spikes, you need to have that down so this does not spread. Whether you guys have a warm season grass or a cool season grass, use my 5-step diagnostic approach. It brings sense to the nonsense of what's happening in the lawn. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, hit me up in the comments below. You know I'd love to help you guys out. Till the next time, guys, the Pest and Lawn Ginja. We're slaying lawns.